Orientation locked. I told you to do it sideways. So why is it doing this? Nope, didn't want to do that. I even said don't do that. What? What's going on here? None. Dang it, I didn't know you could do green screen on this. Orientation is locked. Rotate back. I told it to do horizontal. Why is it? Well, I guess we're going vertical. Sweet. I'm glad this thing messed that up. All right. Wheel. I gotta do some checks on this thing. Make sure everything is sounding good. And then I'll be on screen. All right, I got about 40 minutes to get this stuff done. Let's see. What is that doing? All right, we're going to leave it at that. Does this version also have dead pixels? I've not had any dead pixels. All right. I'm going to leave that up, and I'll be glancing at chat every now and then. Let's see here. All right, let's get out the testing tools. And I need to let this warm up just a little bit more anyways. Get this stuff out of the way. Okay. Let's see what we're rocking. Full. So let's run some UFO tests here. All right. which, I mean, my camera, this is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's not going to pick up on this. All right, so we got trail there. So then the notion is like, how much is this improving it? And I think with this, I mean, you kind of start to see the same patterns. Off generally does pretty decent. Then you get towards the, like, they all name them different, but this is saying standard. My assumption is standard's going to be a little bit faster. Potentially a couple numbers for the inverse ghosting, but we may not see anything. Advanced, we start to see more inverse ghosting. Yes, the panel probably gets a little bit faster, but at the expense of inverse ghosting. And then by the time you get to ultra fast, you've sacrificed everything. Any speed advantage that it was giving you potentially crashes anyways, and then you just start to see inverse ghosting, which, looking here, it's subtle, but you'll see essentially on the back end where you have the ghosting, instead of the normal color blur with that, which is primarily yellow, you'll start to see some blue show up with that, which lets me know that I'm starting to see that inverse ghosting. But this one has the dynamic overdrive. So I'm curious to see how that one performs. Still seeing the blue trailing with that, though. This is overclocked right now, too. Which, with that being said, I'm going to need to turn that off. So this is the hard part with doing a review on a monitor. Whoa, what are we doing there? Oh, 60 hertz. Yeah, it looks really bad. So the hard part here is running a test for whether or not overdrive is on or off, which means multiple rounds of testing with this. And you're talking about the difference in 20 hertz. So with that, realistically, how much of a difference are we going to see? All right, so we're at 300 hertz now. Like, you're getting 20 extra hertz, but it's already insanely fast. In terms of the colors, though, everything on this monitor, very crisp. The colors are very good. I've not had any issues with performance. And I'm still seeing the same thing, which is as you move up from off to ultra fast and dynamic, you're just seeing the inverse ghosting right there. So let's set this to off. All right. So yeah, this isn't the mini LED version. It's just an IPS. I don't typically test. I'm assuming you're talking about like input latency with DP at 120 hertz, or are you wanting to know what's the response time at 120 hertz? Because if I slow this down, performance is going to get worse. So especially dropping from the 300 hertz. So that is, I think some people talk about it. I don't know how many people talk about it. I guess sometimes it's just the assumption that everybody understands that if I'm packing in more frames, my response time will improve to a degree, and visually it's actually making up for some of that ghosting because you're just displaying more frames. All right, let's get this thing out. Here's the testing tool. Ooh. So this is the on-screen response time testing tool. So on the back here, we have the 5 sensors. And so that's picking up on any latency and really just the response time between the different transitions in grayscale, also the black to white transitions as well. All right. And so, is it Tech Team GB makes this? So anybody can order one of these tools. And he actually just makes them. All right, let's line this thing out. Yeah, I don't test. If you're talking about input delay between the PC and the monitor, I don't test that. That's not typically one that I've actually seen other people test usually too. Also depends on the equipment, because sometimes if you're like referencing like monitors unboxed, I've looked into their testing equipment and there's just no way I can afford it, because you're talking about a lot of money. All right, well, I don't test as often on this PC. I'm hoping to actually upgrade this one. So this is the Fantex ITX, forget the name of it right now. I actually did a video on that, recorded everything, had a bunch of issues with it, and now I need to upgrade it. The enclosure is so small, the heat from the GPU and really the motherboard both, but the GPU is blowing on the motherboard. It's causing the back USB ports when gaming to overheat. So when I run a controller, essentially that USB dongle or even the headset, it about 10 to 15 minute mark, it starts zonking out on me, basically overheating. All right, we're only going to run 2 passes on this for right now, and I'll probably just end up testing everything. Let's do that backwards. There we go. All right, we are firmly pressed up against the monitor there. All right. I do leave G-Sync on for this. I'll leave the G-Sync compatibility mode on as well. So Overdrive is off right now. Put my notes. So Overdrive off, 300 hertz. All right. Runs a gamma test, and then it runs through however many cycles I tell it to. With this PC, for whatever reason, better data, but on this one, it does not want to display the results in the PNG format for whatever he's using to create the table. So it essentially blanks out most of it. So I run these longer tests and then I can't use any of it. So we run the lighter tests, but I'm checking every overdrive mode here. I don't check the MPRT because anytime you have an MPRT mode, the motion picture response time mode, you're just using black frame insertion. So with that, I can confirm that it's a black frame insertion mode, but they all are. So they're even starting to call them, some monitors call them other things now. What was the other one? Innocent had one, I believe. What's the new modes? But with those, yeah, they call them something else, but it's just a black frame insertion mode. So visually, it looks to your eye like it is. It's speeding up. It's cleaner. You are seeing less ghosting, but it's just an illusion. It's a trick. We run the test. It actually, with the numbers, it'll blank them out as if it's. So we're gonna have perceived response time, RGB overshoot, and then visual response rating on this chart. We look at the perceived response time. That's where we're literally looking at the response time between these transitions. And there you'll get 0. I don't get 0 with OLEDs. This thing. So here we go. That's how I know it's black frame insertion, is because there would be no zeros over here. All right, save PNG. Okay. Then okay, DP overdrive off. I need to rename that, don't I? I'll just put a dash with it. Okay, let's look at this here. Perceived response time, which, I mean, you guys aren't going to be able to even see that on this thing. Not looking good. Average complete time, 15.36 milliseconds. 02550, which is the black to white to black transition, is 24.5. Keep in mind, a lot of times, like if you're looking at G to G, gray to gray, they're giving you a super fast number. They're looking at the middle of the chart on whatever testing tool that they're using, and they're seeing a 1 somewhere in there, so they can claim the 1 millisecond gray to gray. Best here is 4.9, worst is 16.8. Like I predicted, no RGB overshoot here. Visual response rating, it's taking these two things, averaging them out and grading them. We're decent B, 81.37, or I guess low end of the B scale there. And then you'll have your best and worst. All right, so done with that one. So now, overdrive, we'll go standard. Double check that too. Good. All right. Overdrive off, go overdrive standard. Overdrive standard 300 hertz. Okay. Good to go. And we'll let this go. So, pattern I've seen before that I, again, expect that we will see here is we're going to see the perceived response time improve, potentially a couple numbers pop up on the RGB overshoot. If it does, it'll be like, historically, it's been like 1 to 10, maybe. Usually it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. we'll see the visual response rating improve because of this improvement between the perceived response time, but not really seeing a lot of RGB overshoot. So yes, we'll see it go up. And then once we get to the mode after this, I suspect we either level off or potentially peak. Maybe even we start that descent back down. And if you're starting that descent back down, this thing is essentially getting faster, but you're seeing more RGB overshoot. So it's, to me, it's a wash. If the monitor is getting faster, but I'm seeing more inverse ghosting, I don't like that. And how this compares to OLEDs, like maybe slightly over 1 is what I'll see. Generally speaking, below 1 millisecond. I never see the 0.03 milliseconds that they all claim. And what I always say is I'm just providing more data points. This is a different testing tool. I'm sure whatever they're using in-house is far superior to this. I'm just trying to give more data with this. When we look at the color gamut, I got to get that tool out. When we look at the Spider X color calibration tool, same thing. I'm providing more data depending on whether or not they're claiming gamut or the color space. All right, so exactly what I said was going to happen. So we're starting to see this improve here. Let's save this real quick before I forget. Standard good. So now it's gotten faster. Average complete time, 12.1. The 02550 is 22.6. The best is 1.9. Worst is 14.8. So across the board, we got faster. Only seeing a couple numbers here, so I'm not really going to see any inverse ghosting or the visual side of it. We peaked at 5. So we got a 2, a 3, 2, 4, 5. And then, of course, the average rating then went up. We went from the 81 to 86.29. So now we really are a solid B. The best here, 96, the worst, 72. And you can see the areas where it's struggling. I can even tell you the transition. 51 for the amount of essentially grayscale here. And then when it transitions over to white with that, it's just slower. That's the 14.8 right there. Okay. So we got that one. Now Overdrive Advanced, and this is where I think we will see this really start to I go back and forth on that. There's 5 modes. So this may be peak, or we're either peaking or we're crashing. Overdrive, what was this? Advanced. Come on. There we go. So I wish I could run more simultaneously with this, but like I said, having that issue with it not wanting to display the graphs there is kind of a bummer. Because usually I can set this and then I'll actually walk away because it'll take a while and then I'll come back to it. And you probably can't see on camera. I don't think so. Yeah. But it's actually letting me know run 1, and then it's telling me the transitions there 2040, 0255, 2550. So black to white, and then we have that. These are all the grays, right? The tool, by the way, $200. Some of the other ones, though, thousands of dollars. So we'll run, what time is it? I don't know that I'll have time to do everything. If I have to cut it short, I can always do that, but we'll run the Spider X after this. So this is the Spider X color calibration tool. And then inside there is the sensor. This stacks up against the monitor and runs the color report on it. So I can see what the gamut's going to be. The claim here is 97 or 98% DCI-P3. But then they're claiming 144% of like the sRGB, and I think that's where they're wrong. Okay, well, like I said it was going to do. All right, so we've peaked essentially, and we're coming back down. All right, has this gotten faster? Yes. So average complete time 11.68. Save this thing. The best is slower though. We were at 1.9, now it's 2.8. The worst is 13.6. The 02550 is 21.2. So average is better, but the best and the worst aren't as good, but the average. So overall, this is faster. You are getting RGB overshoot. Anytime you see the red on this with the RGB overshoot, that is not good. So we're seeing high numbers. So now basically it's saying you will start to actually see inverse ghosting. Because of this, it drops these other numbers over here. So now if these weren't here, this would be much higher. Now we're seeing the average rating is 85.78. So we're almost the same. So these are kind of interchangeable for these two when it comes between, what was that, standard and advanced. So you could take either one and be okay with that. In terms of overall performance, you're probably going to have some of that inverse ghosting, but because it's faster, it kind of negates it, I guess, to a degree, because there's less ghosting. So less ghosting, but more inverse ghosting, right? All right, let's see. Advanced, okay. Lock that. And now we have the ultra fast, and this is usually where it kind of craps the bed here. All right. Ultra fast. I am curious about the dynamic though. All right. So now we have ultra fast. We'll see what this does. So I'll do this, I'll do dynamic, and then I'll do the good news is with the Spider X, the colorimeter, those tests are actually really quick. So I'll run those tests, and then on my own, I'll have to do the 320 hertz and see what that does. And if they're similar enough, usually in a review, I may check them, but I may not actually showcase them because my videos tend to be lengthy, and adding more data points just means saying that they're the same, but I can't just do that. I have to explain and walk everybody through it. And a segment that should take 20 seconds turns into 20 minutes.